the transfer portal continues to move on along for everybody. I don't think anyone's immune to the transfer portal. I've heard ridiculous numbers of players, all sorts of numbers that I can't recite right this second. So it's been massive, but the last three for Oklahoma, little impact there when we talk Noah Renz, Cody Jackson, and also I actually posted a video when the announcement came down about Rawlings Bijan. Don't believe I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. I don't have it in front of me, but three players that didn't see the field too much. Cody Jackson had like 5 catches last season.
Yeah, Mark, you're exactly right, and I think, and I'm not quite sure myself, but I think Cabange is the we can just say NKR for sure for short.
Let's do that.
But no, I think one of the things that was interesting coming into this little period between spring and the deadline to enter the transfer portal was what was Oklahoma's going to look like. Obviously, we knew Oklahoma had a bit of a max exodus between what happened with Riley and then when the spring season started. But then understanding there's a lot of kids that have really, really bought into the culture with Brent Venables and the team and the staff that's brought in. So what would that look like here? So I think it was really exciting, really refreshing to see Oklahoma, not have any you wouldn't expect, but any potential contributors. I mean, I think Cody Jackson is certainly, as you illustrated, Mark, is the one that could potentially provide a little bit of concern just from a position that Oklahoma doesn't have as much depth at, that they probably would like to have a little bit more. So, but yeah, I think it was good overall. I mean, specifically, to your point, when you look at everything going on across the country, and it's inevitable that I'm sure we would get into this Jordan Addison thing. At some point with the transfer portal being more, starting to become a little bit just like recruiting from a free agency perspective with NIL kind of, in the loop with all of this, but just refreshing to see Oklahoma, only having those 4. And obviously you would think that Oklahoma has some opportunity, whether it be at the probably at the quarterback position, the wide receiver position, and maybe at the rush end perspective there on the defensive side. But no, not a lot of turnover, which is good for a staff and a team that needs to have that kind of fluidity within the team.
Absolutely. If you look at the transfer portal rankings, you will see USC on top. You will see LSU there. Basically, you see a lot of teams that are in transition with first-year head coaches. And Oklahoma certainly brought in a number of key components, but in terms of losses, it's been rather minimal. Latrell McCutcheon, I saw him play in the USC spring game, and he looks to factor in pretty from a pretty integral standpoint into the USC defense this year, but they were awful on defense last year. If you look at the recruiting rankings, Cody Jackson in particular was a top 20 wide receiver coming out of high school and a top nearly 100 player. So you got to think, despite his lack of playing time and only 5 catches his first season, that he will have no issue finding a home. Very talented guy. Noah Renz, a top 24 player at his position. And yes, NRK was the 36th rated defensive lineman in the country and a top 300 player. So all of them you would think would land somewhere